Her Opinion Show, the podcast you didn't know you needed. Real talk, bold truth, her voice, her vision, her rules. Let's get into it.
And welcome back to Her Opinion Show. Another week, another day of our gossip. I mean, I don't know. I hope you're not you're not tired of us yet. But today we have a special guest, and I'm excited to know what you're going to say about me. Okay,
because about both of us. Come on, just just her.
Okay. Jenn Pinkerton, and our psychotherapist of the week, and you're the connection expert.
Yes.
So I've been seeing you already on the news, on Fox, on the Nightcap. I've seen you on many different things, and I was like, we need to have her here. I think you have a lot of wisdom for us, and maybe something I don't want to hear about myself. I don't know. We'll find out about.
We'll learn something. We always learn something on the show. We always learn something about ourselves.
Yes,
about our
even our producer says she learns things.
I know.
But I love that. So give us a little background of why you chose to go into, I wouldn't say that you're a dating expert, but you do a lot of things on relationships, right?
So I'm a psychotherapist. I specialize in relationships of any kind, and it's connection of any kind, whether it's with a spouse, whether it's with someone you're dating, whether it's your best friend, whether it's with your mother, your child, it's connection. And I work from a lens of attachment. I work from a lens of we are all seeking to find emotional safety in other people. And so relationships are kind of my jam, and that's what I work with from any bit of that spectrum. And I started out before I was ever a therapist writing about relationships. And then I went back to get my master's degree to basically have those credentials to, earn more money writing about relationships. But then I pivoted a little bit, and I really loved the art of holding space for someone else and really working with someone on their personal journey of healing. And it was something that's near and dear to my heart. So I began to really focus on therapy, and I have my own private practice, Pinkerton Psychotherapy.
Okay.
And I'm a writer. I'm a doctoral candidate. I'll be done with my PhD this year. And then I'll have my book
congratulations.
coming out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
A lot
been
of fabulous
long
things.
journey for me. And I'll have a book coming out with that. And I'm also a podcaster. I do a lot of speaking events like this one.
Listen, I don't know how you do it all, but okay.
Well, I love what I do.
Yes.
I love my
right?
focus.
You would have to get all those accomplishments. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is that a lot of us out here have issues with, do I go see a therapist? Do I not? Do I is it me?
Do you have to wait until there's an issue to go to therapy?
Well, you're asking a therapist this question.
That's what I'm saying.
So of course, my answer is
always
yes. You go. But I'll tell you, I'll expound on that a little bit. I do think therapy is wonderful for everybody because most of us don't learn that early lesson from our parents or caregivers about how to look inward and how to be self-reflective. And part of emotional growth, what I think is one of the keys to emotional maturity in general, is the ability to self-reflect. If we don't have that part of us that is constantly self-aware about how we're showing up, and we don't self-reflect on our own actions and behaviors, we're missing a big piece of that ability to function in the world in a mature way. So I think getting help in general is effective. Also, though, the world is challenging when it comes to dating. We are bringing in all of our traumas, all of our unhealed wounds, to the table. And most people have the psychoeducation to understand what they're doing and how they're showing up. And most of the time, the common denominator is us.
Right.
And if we're not handling relationships well or we're having challenges. And so I think learning how to be able to look inward and learning some of that key information that we don't understand about why we are the way we are, because we kind of have to understand the why to transform. And everybody can.
So we have to work on ourselves
That's
before we can really get into a relationship and be a successful relationship.
I mean, I think that everyone was born perfect, and then we get a little messed up along the way with our life experiences and things that challenge us and shape us. And so if we have the ability to return to the person we're born to be, the person that, the best version of us, why wouldn't we want to do that?
Right. And I do believe that when you're younger, you are in that era of making a lot of mistakes and not understanding who you are and why am I this way or why am I going through this relationship this way. And as you get older, you do want to heal from that. You see things in a different light.
Yes.
And you're more open to seeing a therapist or understanding, like, I don't want to repeat these cycles. I don't want to repeat these things. And I feel like now me in my 30s is that person that's like, I'm not that person I was. And I understand that I've grown from that. And a lot of that came from healing and understanding that part of it is mistakes that you've made that you repeat. And I believe that 100% a therapist sometimes just to open up and talk and to release is like gratifying. I feel like it's
having the space to be able to speak to somebody in a non-judgmental way, you know, where you really have a sacred time to be able to just share how you feel. That in itself is very freeing, and it does have a lot of conversation that maybe you wouldn't have had before, and it allows you to gain a lot of perspective that you wouldn't have had before.
Right.
And I think that nowadays we look at therapy very differently, and maybe I think that was the one thing that going through the pandemic and things like that was saying that. But I think everybody should want to grow.
Yeah.
And I kind of function as a change agent because I'm in a more direct approach because I deal with relationships versus if you were seeking a therapist for depression or anxiety or trauma, the focus is different. Yeah. But for me, this is my specialization, whether it's relational, whether it's intimacy, sex therapy work, whether it's, you know, the background trauma that we grow up with and how it shows up in our relationships. So I think that everybody needs to give it a try.
You're more focused on couples or individuals?
It's both. I have just as many people that come to talk about their relationships or lack thereof as people who come as a couple to work through issues together.
Do you get a lot of people that come because, let's just say, I want to come, but my husband doesn't want to come, and they come solo first, and then, you know.
Because sometimes even if it's a woman, you know, like a lot of times, like husbands are like, oh, she's always going to be on your side because you're a woman.
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting statistic that I've learned in looking in my clientele. I would say I have an equal amount of men versus women that come to therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
A lot more than you think.
Thank you, men.
It's true. I think that a lot of men are seeing that maybe they don't have what they want in a relationship. And then how did they get that? Or maybe they have a repetition, you know, scenario of failed relationships. And so what is that about? Why is that? Or maybe they've heard the same thing from different women they've dated.
Right.
You know, if they're in a
See a
heterosexual
therapist.
relationship. So I think seeing someone to figure it out is important. And there are common denominators. There are patterns that show up. And so understanding what those are and understanding who you are can make a really big difference in what your dating life or relational life is going to look like.
And that brings us into our topic, which is healing from attachment wounds. And one of the things is when, I guess, maybe you don't see it yourself a lot of times, but when someone comes to see you, do you see those red flags right away? I wouldn't say that everybody has red flags, but I call mine red flags when certain things come out about me that I don't like, which are my attachment issues or I mean, do I have them? I don't know. I don't think I'm the problem.
You know, well, if I do TMI, I think a lot of what I had was getting my father's approval and always kind of like, you know, if he, and I would have to hide things from my dad because, you know, I was always conscious about what is he going to say about me and things like that. So I think that bled into my past relationships and really kind of affected them. Now in this relationship, I do feel a little bit more security and things like that. But I feel like that does have a lot, your past has a lot to do with your relationships.
Absolutely. I mean, what we have to recognize is that in attachment, which is basically the bond we form with our primary caregivers, whoever they may be, those are love lessons. They are love lessons of what our love is going to look like. So one of the easiest examples I like to give is if you grew up in a household that was chaotic. So you seek a relationship that feels chaotic, one that is a little bit calmer, a little bit easier, more peaceful, might not seem safe to your nervous system because that does not feel familiar. We repeat what we don't heal, and we will always go for the familiar. That's why you sometimes see people who marry someone that's very similar to one of their parents in personality or certain even conflict style, because it feels very normal in your nervous system. Our bodies and minds are so connected. Our nervous system says, oh, that's home to me. Yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, and for us, especially with our culture and things like that, we come from, it's crazy because absolutely, I can 100% agree with that, is that I come from my dad's culture. He's Persian. So it's very different than my other half, which is Latino. And he's more, there's not much touching. There's not much affection. It's just like always trying to get, you know, do something right to get the approval, work hard, all of those things. And I take that into relationships. I've come a long way from that, but I took that into relationships where I'm seeking approval, but not so much from the person. I feel like it's more like, prove to me that you are going to be good, you know, for me.
Like worthy enough.
Yeah, exactly. And then also too, it's not affectionate.
Right. Yeah. But what if instead of prove to me that you're going to be good for me, as you work on honing the skills so that you know if someone's good for you and if you're good for them.
Right.
I think if you're putting yourself in a position, your partner has to prove something, we're already not where we want to be.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's what I was saying is like, I've come a long way from that because most of my relationships were like that. It wasn't recognizing if the person was good. It was really that they weren't.
Yeah.
And then later being like, yeah, he failed that test.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's growth. And that's coming from your younger age, not even being able to recognize
Right.
it and see it. And then now recognizing it so much that you overanalyze. I feel like sometimes like I'm just like,
nope.
no, anytime. Now I'm like,
Everybody's
anytime
like,
my
nope,
dad
nope.
does something, it's because of you. You know, like those are things that, yes, as you get older and you're tired of going through the same situations, problems, repeating those cycles.
And you still haven't perfected it. Like we're
No.
still trying to even analyze it. And I know Nushin is single. She's looking for somebody
I just
out there.
said, forget it all together.
You know, so it's kind of like sometimes, you know, not trying to settle, but just trying to see, okay, it doesn't have to be overbearing or exactly perfect.
Right.
Well, I think it's understanding that we're not looking for perfection because we're not perfect. So we can't look for something that we also can't bring to the table. I think it's looking for more of when our nervous system feels at peace, when we're with someone that it feels peaceful and calm. But if you don't do that work that on your side, then you don't want the peaceful and calm. You reject it. It's too nice. It's not exciting. It's not good.
Yeah.
You have to do your own work to show up as the healthy person you need to be so that you can also attract a healthy partner. Because someone who also is very healthy is not going to want someone who doesn't mirror those same
Exactly.
types of traits.
And just the same that you feel like something's not right, a guy can feel the same.
Absolutely.
You know, he's like, she's a red flag.
Right.
Yeah.
And also too, I think a lot of times as women, we get caught up in what everybody else is saying or society is saying. And sometimes we don't want to come off too clingy.
Right.
Or like we don't want to say too much too soon. I mean, how do you, or when you're in, let's just say a session with a client, how do you tell them what's okay, what's not? Do you?
Well, it's not about saying what's okay and what's not. It's about me wanting to understand, you know, how do you see the relationships? What's the lens you look at a relationship from? You know, if I'm working with someone and I'm hearing that their boundaries are so stringent, are we missing something here? Are you trying to protect yourself so much that you're insulating yourself so much that you can't connect with somebody?
Right.
Or do you have no boundaries at all and you're allowing things to happen and you need to actually stand up for yourself? It's not about me saying this is what you can do. It's about me understanding how you're looking at the world so I can help you shift that perspective. Because there are very finite rules about what a healthy relationship is. It's quite simple. And most people don't recognize that for being healthy because they've never had it. And so the key is to, I think, understand what are you bringing to the table? What did you experience growing up? And how does that shape you? And what does that look like today? And that's some psychoeducation that works. It's the first step really in therapy. And then also there's the aspect of, you know, what is your attachment style? How do you lean? What are the people that you look for lean? What are some historical things that have happened in your dating history and your relationship history so we can understand why did that happen? What was the breakdown? What did you miss? What did they miss? You know, and to understand what are the types of relationship I want to have? You know, what am I seeking?
Right.
What's important to me?
What are some of those red flags? Like if you are counseling somebody and they're just starting to maybe express to you, you know, maybe, yes, they've had some past and everything, but what are some of the red flags that maybe you would call to their attention to tell them, hey, you know, this is kind of like
nice way.
in a nice way to tell them.
And that's a loaded question because it's different for each person.
Yeah.
Because if I'm working with someone and I know that they tend to lean towards wanting someone who is a little volatile, is a little more, is all this because it feels exciting. Well, I'm not going to say that's the red flag because it's not about that person. It's about them.
Right.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm
So
saying?
good.
So,
So
that's
how
a
would
little
you, okay,
challenging.
so
It
it's
depends.
me, right? It's me. And
Hypothetically.
yeah, you're like, oh, you're going for that guy again. You know, he's probably not, you know, well, what would you say?
I would say, why do you think you're attracted to that? What about that is attractive to you?
Well, he's so exciting and he looks so handsome. He's 6'2".
Okay. And I would say, while physical attraction is, of course, a part of it, it can't be all of it. And if you're attracted to that excitement, where else do you get excitement in your life? Are you searching for a dopamine hit in this? Where else do you get that? What does the rest of your life look like? If the rest of your life felt very healthy and whole, would you still want that? Or do you want that because that's what you're seeking to fill your cup? Is there a void in you that we need to work on?
And he doesn't have a job.
Well, you know,
is that a red flag?
Again, is what does that look like to you? Is that the life you want?
Right.
You know, or do you want a partner that's going to be focused on their own sense of ambition and their own sense of their career path, so that you can both support each other?
Right.
You know, what does that look like for you?
And then maybe you would say, okay, it's fresh. It's only been a week. Come back to
For
me.
sure. I would say, you know, let's talk about that a little bit. And what are you doing in between those times, you know, for your own self-care and your own growth? I think that it's a full picture. And we often get stuck by saying, oh, they were this, they were that. But my question is always going to be, well, what were you? That a lot of people are really uncomfortable with looking inward. And so I think if you even just learn the basics of what is your attachment style? Are you secure, first of all? If you're really secure, you're probably not even coming to therapy. It's something we can all grow to. Everybody can get to a secure place.
But how can you really determine if you're secure?
Well, do you show up as very anxious in a relationship? Do you struggle with that hypervigilant, that feeling of uncertainty where you are seeking emotional safety at all costs? You're needing constant reassurance. You're needing bids for connection. You're needing to feel validated constantly. And you don't feel safe is what it's about. Because at the end of the day, we all just want emotional safety. Every single person does.
Right.
We just seek different ways to get it.
And that's more or less a personal thing on each person.
That's a human nature thing.
Yeah.
Our bodies are wired, our nervous systems are wired for emotional safety. That's why we want to connect with other people, because it feels good.
Right.
You know? But are you someone that leans towards anxious and you have that hypervigilant feeling, that feeling where you're living in yellow, this zone of uncertainty and anxiety? Or maybe do you lean towards avoidant, where any sign of emotional intimacy is scary to you and you have to take a step back because you almost feel flooded with emotion and it's uncomfortable and you don't feel good that way? Or are you disorganized, or you're a combination of both, you know? And so I think understanding where you lie is a great first step. Understanding what are the repetitive patterns that I've had in different relationships. Am I always attracted to the bad boy or bad girl? Am I always, you know, do I see myself always leaning towards volatility, or do I see myself that they end really quickly when they get too close? Do I see that I'm, you know, had this false sense of intimacy in the beginning and I'm picking out China on day one? You know, what are you doing in the situation? And so we look at patterns. And so I do a lot of therapy with dating and relationships from that standpoint. It's like, come in and I have an assessment I want them to fill out before they're there. And I'm understanding what you're bringing to the table so we can break it down and see where you are.
And how do you do a couple? So let's say a couple comes in and maybe they're two different attachment issues and bringing them together, or at least trying to see where each other lacks.
Or, are they compatible?
Well, the couple's different because they're already made a choice. They made a choice to be together. And so when you're coming as a couple, I look at the client as this relationship. It's not this person or this person. It's we want this relationship to work because you're coming for help, because that's your goal. And I want your goal, you know, I want to align with your goal for therapy. And so if that's your goal, it's less about maybe, yes, we want to know your attachment style because we want to know where you sit. But it's more about, what are you both doing in the relationship? How are you showing up? What traumas are you bringing in? You know, what unhealed wounds become what the fight is really about. Because most of the time, the fights are about this secondary thing. And there's this primary thing underneath is what the really problem is. But we're only seeing it up here. We're only seeing that we're fighting about, you know, the towel that's left on the floor. But really we're fighting because this person feels like you're unseen and you're not recognized, you're not appreciated, or you're disrespected. You know, there's bigger feelings at play than just an annoying towel on the floor. But sometimes people can't see that part of it. And so we dig deeper to understand, what is the real conflict about? And then, moreover, what does your healthy conflict style or lack of healthy conflict style look like? How do you fight? There are ways to fight fair. I have power rules that we look at that we want everybody to show up. We're not going to stonewall somebody. We're not going to be emotionally dysregulated in a fight. If we're fighting about something and now somebody's calling names or putting down, we're being real dysregulated and screaming and yelling. Well, now we're no longer about the issue at hand.
Right.
Now we're about all this other noise. And so a lot of it is coming back down to a place to understand how to show up in a healthy way so that you can talk about things and respect each other. And most relationships are missing those foundational things because they weren't learned in our own early love lessons.
Man, so you just basically have to be in a therapy setting. Your whole marriage probably makes sense.
Or individual.
When you learn some tools, though, then you're like, we've got this. Now we understand. I mean, I think so much of it is just an understanding. I wish there was an owner's manual for a relationship we could all get, but you don't.
Well, I don't even read my car one.
But think about if you did. Think about if you knew, okay, if we followed this way to speak to each other and we had a new language, if we followed these basic concepts of what we're not going to do to each other, and we follow this basic idea about knowing what each other's bringing to the table, how different that feels.
Well, give us a little sneak peek. What are some tools for people who have that conflict? Because yes, arguing and everything is normal, but sometimes it
Conflict's
goes
inevitable.
Yeah.
You're going to have arguments because we're not robots. We're unique individuals and people. And a lack of any conflict does not mean a relationship is healthy at all. It means what we're looking for is that we can have conflict in a healthy way.
Sometimes there's crossing the line though.
Sure.
And that's where you got to kind of have those tools to not cross the line.
Right.
Just
and everybody needs to have boundaries too about what's healthy.
So what is something that you counsel, couples and tell them, practice this?
Well, I think that the way you fight is really important because if your message is lost in your delivery, then you're never being heard. And so we're compounding.
It's always the tone, right?
Tone and even the delivery. If someone has a problem because maybe one person's out all the time and they feel left behind and they feel as though they're not being paid attention to, but you come at your partner saying, really, you're going to go out with your friends again? Well, that partner is going to feel instantly defensive. They're under attack and now the message is lost.
And I feel like that happens a lot in women with careers that maybe they weren't doing that. And then all of a sudden they're starting to want to pay more attention to their business and want to, get ahead.
Sure.
Networking is kind of like the thing that you have to do as a business owner. But at the same time, you have a husband at home and then he's taking care of the kids. And it's kind of.
What would it look like if that partner was well-versed enough to say, hey, can I have we're going to seek for buy-in. So, hey, do you have a moment where we can talk? And if now isn't good, can we talk in 30 minutes or an hour? What works for you? Okay, so we have buy-in.
Yeah.
And then you sit down to go to the feeling. And I really push going to the feeling. If we started with the feelings, we would get so much further.
Yeah.
The feeling is, hey, I notice that when you're out a lot, I feel like I'm left behind. I don't feel seen or I don't feel important. And I'm not sure what to do with that because maybe I recognize the answer isn't you not networking, as your example is, but I don't feel comfortable with this. How can we work on this together to come to a place where I'm going to feel better while still honoring that this is a path that you're on and what you need to do? So then you have buy-in.
What's the way to come back? Because I'd be like, I think you need to find something to do.
Well, it might be, what can we do when we are together? Can we approach this from a strength-based standpoint where there's times when we are together, we're maximizing it, where I'm fully present and you're fully present. Maybe when we are together, we're on our phones or we're got our kids or with other friends, and maybe we never feel like we really connect. So what if we prioritize one night a week that we are really connecting and it's just about us? And so maybe you feel better about who we are, and the time that when I'm not here, it's not going to feel so heavy.
That's one of the things that I've learned to do because I do real estate. And so I'm always out and about, or I do a networking event or anything. So I know, so I tell him ahead of time, because, even when we met, he was used to it. But at the same time, now we're married, now we're living together, and now it's different. So I have to tell him, okay, I got to do this event, but you know what? On Friday, we're going to have a date night, just us together. Because I want him to feel like, yes, I come give attention here, but you're my priority.
So you're recognizing to go to that feeling, to go to what he's feeling and honor that.
Yeah.
And that's really a part of what we miss sometimes is what is the feeling? And do we even pay attention to it? If we feel attacked, we will become defensive. That's just the way we are wired as people. So it's a growth opportunity for us to recognize, hold on, if I'm being attacked, let me slow down, because we have to pause. It's power in the pause. If we don't pause, the train leaves the station here. So we have to slow down and say, okay, wait a minute. I want to talk about this. I really understand that you're upset, but let's start over because I'm feeling attacked. So let's reword this
and
differently.
start on a very calm vibe.
And slow down.
Yeah, because there are different, like for my son, he's non-confrontational. He's very like, and I'm,
Get it
what
out
did
of
you
him.
do? Why did you? And he's just like, Mom, chill. Like, and that's how he's gonna go
So he
into
helps you slow down.
and that's how he's gonna go into relationships. I can see it. He's probably gonna get some crazy Latina who's gonna be like
his mom.
Yeah, and then he's like, he just shuts down. He's one of those that will drive someone crazy because they want to get something like
Out of him, yeah.
something, just say something, and he's like, just
Right, but let
leave
me
alone.
challenge that that leaving me alone is his way. He's learned how to feel
Right.
safe. He doesn't feel safe if you're
Exactly.
coming at him. So he's learned to shut down and remove.
And then
So-
I've had to learn how to deal with him, right? So that way, okay, I got to back off, leave him alone, come adjust this later,
Right.
and then
so that
he's
he
ready
can feel
to talk.
safe to lean in.
Exactly.
Again, it's all about emotional
He's
safety.
teaching me.
You know?
Yeah, and the emotional safety is very important. You know, I feel like it does start from our past, even our parents, have you said? Like,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, I completely agree with you because I didn't, I was married before. I didn't feel safe in that relationship. Now I feel that safety and I feel that comfort and it makes me feel like at peace. Like this is where I need to be.
And I gave the example of chaos and us replicating that. But another one I think is important to recognize, because so you can see a full span of what I'm talking about, is let's say somebody is a perfectionist. And in their relationship, they maybe want everything perfect. There must be order in the house at all times. Everything needs to look great. And they're very stressed and present with a lot of anxiety about everything. And the partner's left going, what is your problem? Like, I don't understand this. And it's fighting about it.
Yeah.
But when you learn maybe as that partner to recognize, wait a minute, my partner cares about this so much because it's their way they feel safe. They feel like if everything's orderly and everything's in place, they feel good. Well, why is that? Maybe when they were growing up, they had amazing parents, because again, it's not the blame game for the parents. Most parents did the very best they could with what they have. But let's say that that parents didn't realize that whenever they're saying, you're so amazing because you make straight A's and you're on homecoming court and you're, team captain of the soccer team, and they got all these rewards and accolades for being number one and being the best, that maybe they feel like the only way they earn love is by everything being perfect.
Yeah.
And so when you learn what that's about, then as an adult, we can say, okay, wait a minute. I have a child part of me that's driving me right now. I want to be the adult part in the driver's seat. So I'm going to slow down when I feel those feelings. I'm going to learn how to talk to myself about a way to recognize, wait a minute, I know I'm doing this and that's okay. But what would it look like if maybe I could, slow down a little bit? And maybe I could say, it's okay if I don't have to have everything perfect. And how would I feel? And be self-aware enough to recognize, wow, nothing bad happened. If it wasn't perfect, I feel a little bit better now.
And I think sometimes it's needed more with parents and children.
I think it runs the gamut on every relationship.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not just about couples. I talk about being a connection expert. I care about the connection we have with everybody, because that's how it shows up.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's relationally with a mother-child, father-son, at work even. I mean, I have people that come just to seek help because they recognize at work they are people-pleasing. They want to fawn. They want to make everything right for their boss.
Yeah.
But then they're never respected and they don't understand why.
Yeah.
And so it shows up everywhere.
And it's just like if you don't have a lot of friends, it's the same thing, right?
Right.
That's me.
Exactly.
Jen-
That's me.
And she only has one friend.
I only have one
ChatGPT.
friend. ChatGPT is my only friend.
So what does that look like for you? Like, what is that about? What do you see that maybe are some
It's the
repetitive
mistrust
behaviors for you?
I feel like it's the mistrust. I
feel
just
like you don't have time.
always, I don't have time. And I feel like there's always a hidden motive why people are friends with me. For some reason, there's something that they want to get from me. And I'm a very easygoing person. And I trust people too much. And I give them always the benefit of the doubt. And those have been the people that have betrayed me or done stuff to me.
Trust people too much tells me that, somebody has hurt you in the past.
Oh, yeah,
And maybe
plenty of
instead
times.
Kind of figuring out what that's about, you just decided, let me just avoid it because it feels better.
Yeah.
But there's
Man,
some
you
room
made me
in between
cry.
that.
Hey, and that's me with men.
I'm already.
But there is an in between.
Yeah.
There is room and space to grow, to say, okay, I was hurt and that sucks, but let me unpack that. Let me figure out what that's about. Let me understand my feelings on it. And then how can I show up differently where I can invite connection, but still maintain healthy boundaries so no one takes advantage of me?
Yeah. I need to learn that.
You know?
Maybe I need to go.
Yeah. And on
call
that
Jen.
note, we need therapy.
I know.
Back to my
So,
routine.
yes,
Everybody
we need
needs
Jen.
it.
We need therapy.
Yes, I know.
So we're gonna end on a fun note. So
Okay,
we're
love
gonna
it.
we have a game that we
Okay.
want to play. So Jen, do you have it pulled up too?
Yes,
So-
I do.
Okay. So one of
I
the
love
things
games.
about
All right.
I don't know how fun it is or how funny it is, but we're gonna try it out. Where'd it go?
So we're going to read a scenario.
Do you have
Okay.
it? Okay, good.
You're the
'cause mine's-
therapist. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, read her the first one.
Okay. So you're going to decide if it's a secure queen energy,
Mhm.
anxious attachment alert. We're just going to use one word, but I'm
Sure.
just going to read the little thing.
Okay.
Avoidant Olympics, disorganized drama,
Okay.
or just a hot girl healing moment.
Okay,
So
got it.
So we'll
Okay.
we'll just use one: secure, anxious, avoidant, disorganized, or hot girl.
Okay.
All right. So you triple text someone who left you on red 5 hours ago, and then spiral into planning your funeral because clearly they hate you.
Okay. That is a perfect example of anxious attachment
Okay.
because that person is sitting in a place of extreme distress, waiting. It's that unknown. It's that I need to feel safe.
Yeah.
I need a connection. I need you to reassure me.
Mhm.
I need you to validate me. So I'm going to hit you up over and over and over again, desperate for that answer.
So let me tell you that happens even if you're married
If
or
you're
if
married.
you're in a
So-
relationship.
You're not a hot girl.
I know.
I
Yeah.
would say that is anxious attachment, which
Yeah.
is very common and it's very workable.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit of work to understand how to slow down, how to recognize how you're feeling in your body when you're doing that, recognize those feelings, pause, and be able to have a different narrative, a different story in your head that allows you to give it some time and
Yeah.
some space and recognize that you are safe, even if they don't respond to you.
What
And
if
it
they
takes a
never
little practice
respond
and
to
work.
you and they ghosted you?
Well,
then-
get a
Gotta
get a
over
therapy
it.
session.
Yeah.
We're moving
Get
on to
over
number
it.
2. Okay, number 2. You ghosted a guy because he said, "I like you."
That would be avoidant. That would say that if there is a sign of intimate connection or true intimacy and vulnerability that is terrifying to you
Okay.
and you don't feel safe. So now you're going to lean out. You're going
Right.
to basically run away from it because it's terrifying.
Okay.
3.
So you said yes to a project at work, even though you're drowning because you didn't want to disappoint anyone.
I would say that's a combination between probably a little bit of anxious attachment, but maybe also a trauma response known as fawning. Fawning is people pleasing. And that means that you feel as though the way you gain emotional safety and the way you feel safe is by that feeling of fixing and approval. And so if you fix it and you get approval and you do everything just right, then somebody will love you. Somebody will like you. And so that's the way they're showing up at work, is to try to get that recognition.
Side note, what would you do to combat that?
Learning how to connect your mind and body. It's down regulating your nervous system when you're activated in a moment where you feel that way. And it's working with clues of how to understand that you're in your upper part of your brain and we got to slow down. We've got to recognize the narrative in my head is not healthy. How can I regulate myself? Am I going to use breath work? Am I going to tap? Am I do these things to get to a calm state? So then I can recognize that's not for me. That's not really something I need to do. It's not going to serve me. It's not going to help me in any way.
Go do something else.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. You stalk your situationship Venmo transactions for clues.
Oh, ouch. Not good. Not good.
Who's he Venmoing?
Yeah, that's anxious attachment. And that's, again, someone who's looking for clues. When we're really feeling anxious in a relationship and we lean towards anxious attachment, we will look for any clues. We are searching, scanning constantly for what? Emotional safety.
Yeah,
Again,
right.
I want to feel safe with this person. I don't feel safe. And we tend to think it's about them, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
about us. And if
So,
we
yeah.
heal that anxious attachment and we start leaning into more secure, then we get to a place where we could care less what's in their Venmo. Because you know what? If they're not showing up in the relationship in a way for us, then we don't want them anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the goal.
if I just want to know why he hasn't Venmo'd me.
That is a whole different story altogether.
Girl. No, just kidding. But listen, we had so much fun with you. Thank you
Yes.
for
Great.
coming
Time
on.
went by so quickly.
Yes, we
It
learned a
always
lot.
does on this
Yeah.
topic,
I
especially.
thought I was secure. Apparently not.
Apparently, I need Jen.
Yeah, Jen
need
needs
the other Jen.
But again, let them know where they can find you and everything you have
Absolutely.
coming up.
So yes, my website is pinkertonpsychotherapy.com. Most people reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram is Jenn B is my middle initial Pinkerton. So Jenn B Pinkerton, or you can go to Pinkerton Psychotherapy and you can connect with me there too. So
Awesome.
Amazing. Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Yes,
And
thank you
thanks
so
for
much,
tuning in,
and cheers.
everyone.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Let's do a cheer.